Robert Berdella became known as the Kansas City Butcher due to his way of dissecting his victims. In 1982, Berdella rented a booth in the Westport Flea Market. There he sold art, jewelry, and antiques. He didn't earn much profit working his booth, so he would often take in lodgers to have extra income. But working his booth, he would find his first known victim. In July 1984, Berdella promised to give Jerry Howell, 19, a ride to a dance contest in a nearby town. He began drugging Howell with alcohol and Valium until he was unconscious, then later injected him with a tranquilizer before tying him to the bed. There he would torture and rape Howell for approximately 28 hours. Howell later passed away due to asphyxiation. In April 1985, Robert Sheldon, 20 years old, a former lodger of Berdella, returned to Berdella's home looking for a place to stay. Berdella would later drug and torture Sheldon by swabbing drain cleaner in his eye, inserting needles under his fingernails, tying his wrists with piano wire to damage the nerves in his hands, and filling his ears with caulking. Berdella would later murder Sheldon by suffocating him with a sack and rope. 27-year-old Mark Wallace took shelter in Berdella's shed during a thunderstorm in June 1985. His death was due to lack of oxygen and a combination of injected drugs. James Ferris, 25, met Berdella in a bar in September of 1985. Ferris was kidnapped, tortured, and drugged by Berdella for about 27 hours before his death. Todd Stoops, 23, was kidnapped by Berdella in June 1986. He was tortured by electric shocks from a spatula placed on his eyelids to permanently blind him. Stoops will die later due to blood loss and infection on July 1st, 1986. Larry Wayne Pearson, 20, was held captive by Berdella in June 1987 and was murdered 6 weeks later by suffocation. Berdella buried Pearson's head in his garden. In March 1988, Berdella would abduct his final victim, Christopher Bryson, aged 22. Berdella swabbed Bryson's eyes with ammonia and tied him to the bed. Berdella left the home, and Bryson used this as his moment to escape. Bryson jumped from the second-floor window, wearing nothing but a dog collar around his neck and breaking his foot in the fall. He managed to get help from a neighbor, calling the police, and Berdella was later apprehended. In Berdella's home, police found over 300 Polaroids of victims and human remains both in the home and in the garden. Berdella would later plead guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole to the Missouri State Penitentiary. On October 8, 1992, at age 43, Robert Berdella died of a heart attack.